guys, my name is Trinity. If you're here to talk about books. Today I'm going over my May the 4th Read With You readathon. And first off, I would like to say these are the books I did not get to that were on my list. Now, these two are likely to move on to my next month's TBR because I'm very excited for them. We will talk about that later. But there were some things that came up during the May the 4th Read With You readathon that I was not anticipating. And we'll talk about that as well. So to start off, you guys know I planned my TBR for this readathon way in advance. I was really looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to getting to some of the books that I put off because of SPSFC and hadn't had a chance to read. And was really wanting to get some of the books off of my TBR cart onto my shelves, off of my floor, onto my shelves, all of those things, or out of the house, you know. So we had kind of a few hiccups along the way though. And one of those being my son had his 5th grade promotion, and that week was absolute chaos. I was not anticipating it being as busy as it was. I know as a fairly new mom, there are certain things that you anticipate and certain things you don't, but my son is not a joiner. And so him wanting to be involved in all of the big events was a bit of a surprise. He has really high anxiety, so when there's a lot of people around, it's not usually something he wants to be involved in. And so, yeah, I just wasn't anticipating that. And we are prepping for vacation. So because we are prepping for vacation, my weekends have been really busy, just insanely busy. So gaming time has been shortened, reading time was shortened, and I was not able to sit down and record videos because we were go, 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 like the whole week. And then my mom was in the hospital. I know some of you guys saw that, but it has just been a chaotic few weeks. And that's the reason I haven't posted any videos recently. I did talk about it on my community post. I did talk about it on Twitter. I did talk about it on Discord. So sorry if you guys have already seen my updates for that, but that's currently where we are. Now, for the readathon, I was able to make it to Dark Lord of the Sith. And I got my species, I was able to gain my bounty hunters and all of that, but we'll talk about that as we go through. And sorry if I shift a bit, I have all of my notes on the side over here, and then I have my book log on my computer over here. So if I'm shifting a lot, I do apologize. So for the first book that I read for this readathon, I read For the Prompt Telekinesis, which is a neutral prompt to borrow a prompt from the light side. And I read a book from the library. So I had the audio from Libby for this one. I do have the physical, obviously, but I was listening to it, borrowing it from Libby. Now, there were things I really loved about this book. There were things I really didn't like about this book. So one, I'm not getting rid of this because it is stunning. I love this book, like the physical form of this book. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm going to let it decorate my shelves. So Amina Al-Sarafi. I love the character of Amina Al-Sarafi. She was so great to follow. She is an older pirate lady who really has a dark past, and she uses that past to go on her final mission, her final journey, and gets wrapped up in a couple of very convoluted schemes. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything, but I have read The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, really loved it, and so I was very excited for this. The writing in this one is not as good, and I say that because I don't know if it's the transition from third person to first person that didn't work for me, or if it's the fact that Davabad is so fleshed out in its world building that this one just fell flat. I don't know what it was. That's my biggest problem, is I can't tell you exactly what I didn't like about this, other than some of the plot points are really convoluted, and a lot of the historical inaccuracies kind of threw me out of the story a little bit. And I know that Shannon Chakraborty was trying to add historical elements without actually like delving into the history of what we're talking about, but anyway, there were a couple things that pulled me out of the story. I did end up saying that I would still recommend it because I would definitely recommend it. I would just be aware that this is a style that's very different from Dave Abad. It is a character that is very different from characters she's written in the past. And that's a good thing. We always want our authors to grow. We always want our authors to try something new. I mean, it's a big reason why I'm a fan of Anthony Ryan is because nothing reads the same. And I just think that with this one, there was a lot that could have been done a little bit better, and I would have enjoyed it more. There's a part in this where during her journey, she kind of invades I don't know how to say this without spoilers, an island that she's not supposed to be in or on, and the characters there were weird. They were weird, and trying to parse out that whole storyline for me was irritating and a little difficult. But aside from that, I do think there's a good story here. I do think there is. Will I continue with Amina Al-Sarafi? I don't know. I really don't, because while this book is absolutely stunning and gorgeous, the books themselves are going to be about $30, $40 from Fairy Loot, the continuations of them. And while I would love to have a matching set, I didn't love this one enough to actually consider buying a matching copy. Now, I might do them on audio. There's a good chance that maybe Hachette will be kind to me and let me review the audio copy, even though this one didn't quite hit for me. But anyway, that was my first power that I got. Okay, and to get my lightsaber, I had to read a book with the opposite of my favorite color. We've talked about this a couple times. You guys can't really tell that this is teal, but when I'm looking at it face to face, like full on, this is teal. And so that's the opposite of my favorite color, which would be like a hot pink. Yeah, my lightsaber. I One Dark Window. Guys, I loved this book. I absolutely love this book. Now, I'm a huge fan of Gothic writing. There's a lot of people who do not like the Gothic writing style, and I totally get it. I do. But I really enjoy it. And this is Gothic fantasy. I think that this is exactly what it says it is. So if you are not a fan of Gothic storytelling, if you are not a fan of Gothic writing, this will not be the book for you. However, because it combined my favorite writing style, my favorite story setup with the Gothic, and then added fantasy to it, I loved this book so much. It's probably going to make my favorite books of the year because it is 100% what I'm looking for whenever I pick up a book. But this has a lot of lore to delve through, and I did enjoy the fact that the lore was given in little chunks at the beginning of the chapters. So it wasn't like we were sifting through it during the reading process. It was just delivered via that way. And we got some lore via the nightmare in her head whenever he was talking to her. And I really loved that whole setup. I really loved the magic and the way the nightmare became a part of her and how the nightmare was helping her. I really loved the explosive ending. You know, that's the thing about Gothic books. The ending is what's going to get you. And the ending is going to be this huge reveal that you're not expecting. And maybe in this one, it was a little bit more expected than in a lot of Gothic books that you read, because the horror is present in the story, where sometimes in Gothics, the horror is an outlier. Like it's a very present thing, but you're not fully aware of what it is. And so I think that this just delivered on everything I wanted. And I have a new crush. His name is Raven. And I adored him so much, so much. But the lush Gothic writing style is here. The atmosphere is on point. The darkness that pervades everything in a Gothic novel is here. It's just so good. It is so good. And I do know that the second book has either already released or is close to release, and I will be picking it up. I will be reading it. I absolutely love this. Okay, as you guys know, we had a few hiccups along the way. So I had received a few ARC copies of books. I have received some advanced listening copies of books, and there were some things that I tried to fit in to the readathon, which is why I didn't get to all of the books on my list, because I kept trying to plug in ARCs and things that needed to take priority. You guys know I am trying to get away from obligation reads, but there were some that were high on my priority list for this year. and they were delivered to me, so I couldn't pass them up. The first of those would be Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. Now, you guys probably know I really loved To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I loved it so much. But one problem I had with To Sleep in a Sea of Stars was the beginning. The beginning of the book is so very slow and scientific, and it's about exploration and finding these new worlds and what it means and what, like, how are you supposed to study things that you don't really understand. And I really didn't like that part of the book. Now, Jennifer Hale is the author, I mean, not the author, the narrator for To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and I absolutely love Jennifer Hale. So I didn't mind the slow beginning of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars because I was just enjoying her voice so much that I didn't care. I just didn't care. But when the action picked up and whenever everything started to come together and you started to figure out what was going on, the whole mystery starts to unravel in To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Obsessed with Jennifer Hale though, and that's probably why I love that book so much. But Fractal Noise is everything I didn't like in the beginning of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. It's slow paced. I don't like whiny characters, but this character was actually grieving, so it wasn't like this person was just whining all the time. They were in a grief state, and it was just so difficult to be in their head, and I didn't enjoy that. And then kind of goes on this like suicide mission because why not? He's grieving, so might as well put himself in danger. And then we start journeying because they are trying to discover the source of this noise, the source of this power that they can sense, feel, map, I guess is the easiest way to say that. And it was a whole bunch of grieving and journeying, which are two things that are almost guaranteed to pull me out of a story. And so while I read or listened to 60% of this book, I'd had enough. I had had enough and I couldn't finish it. Even though Jennifer Hale did an amazing job and she sings, oh my gosh, she sings in this audiobook and if you haven't heard Jennifer Hale sing, you're missing out. But yeah, I didn't like it. And then we had our next hiccup with The Iron Crown by L.L. McCrae. I want to say something very clearly here. L.L. McCrae's writing is fantastic. Fantastic. I really enjoyed her writing style, so I cannot wait to pick up something else by L.L. McCrae. And guess what? I have a backlist. I have a backlist because all of these indie sales that keep going on, she's always a part of, and I have a lot of L.L. McCrae's writing to get through. So while I'm disappointed that The Iron Crown didn't work out for me, it's not the end of the world and not the end of my journey with L.L. McCrae. And actually, I think I'm NF-ing this book. That means not for now. The reason for that is there's a trope that is used in this book that I don't like. Right now, my patience for things that I don't like is just non-existent. I cannot handle certain things, and the amnesia trope bothered me. It really bothered me. It's not something that I'm completely put off by, and it's not something that usually will make me set a book aside. However, I've talked about this a little bit. With SPSFC and all of that stuff, I have found that there are certain things I just don't have the tolerance for right now. And I do think the Iron Crown could possibly work for me in the future. Like I said, there are things I loved about this. I really love the writing style. I was really enjoying the characters. So I think I could come back to this and really enjoy it at a different time. So it's not a DNF. It is a not for now. I will come back to it eventually. And then Stringers by Chris Panettiere, I also DNF'd. So I had real worries about Stringers being a problem for me, especially because of SPSFC. I know I've been saying this a lot, but humor is subjective, and while I do like dirty jokes, while I do think that random facts popping into someone's head, you know, not even knowing why. I mean, I love iZombie. So iZombie does this, uses this trope, and I really enjoy it. But with the humorous books that I've had to read for SPSFC, or at least had to attempt for SPSFC, I lost all interest when the humor started to overtake the story. And I hate that. I hate that because I really wanted to love Stringers. Now, Same thing with L.L. McCrae here. I have The Phlebotomist on my TBR, and I still plan to read it. I still plan to give Chris Panettiere another try. It's just that with all of the ridiculousness that I had read for SPSFC, I couldn't handle stringers. I couldn't handle stringers, but that does mean I will probably put The Phlebotomist, like push it back to after all of the SPSFC stuff is done, because I do know there's another ridiculous book coming. So I have not abandoned either of these authors, but I do think that because of where they landed in my reading, I will not be enjoying them right now. So I am DNFing stringers because I don't think that that's actually going to work out for me. But The Phlebotomist, I do have high hopes for. So next, I went for my Bounty Hunters and read The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. I really enjoyed this, and I have a new ship. I told you I had a new book boyfriend for One Dark Window, but I have a new ship for The Stardust Thief. I thought this was fun. Now, I'm not always the biggest fan of fun, funny adventure stories. This one worked for me though. It totally worked for me. I don't know if it was the setting, because I do love a good desert fantasy. I don't know if it was the characters and the interplay between the characters that made this so enjoyable, but I just really enjoyed every aspect of it. I thought that all of the elements were done really well. The writing was really good. The intrigue was really good. The characters were well written. And I can see this series becoming a favorite series of mine. It probably has no chance of like overtaking like the ones you see back here, but you know, top 20 at least. And I think that one of the things that appeals to me about this book is, you know, it's short, but there's a lot delivered in this. So there's not a whole lot of filler. And that's my problem with epic fantasy, is that I have to read through a lot of filler to get to the story. And in this, I didn't. There's also some really interesting journeying going on here. I'm not a big fan of journeying, you know that. But the things that happen along the way are so intriguing. Like, you have to figure out the mystery of why things are happening the way they are. And I think when an author can make a journey intriguing and not just let them plod along, I really enjoy that. And so it hit the mark for me. I highly recommend The Stardust Thief. I loved it. I loved it. Next, I had to get another ability and do Deadly Sight. That is a book in rough condition. And as you can tell, yeah, she in rough condition. I read A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine, and I really liked this story. So this is one of those books that could have gone either way for me. And actually, this was a discussion in my Discord that people were like, oh, you might like it, but you might hate it. And I'm like, okay, let's find out. Let's find out. So I don't like when plots are not clear. I don't like when plots are not the focus. And I feel like this is character driven, and it does have a very good mystery at the heart of it, but it relies very heavily on character, and I'm a plot driven reader. So one of the things that my friend Kit had told me I would really like about this is the writing style, and they were right. I really enjoyed Arkady's writing style, and I really enjoyed the mystery at the heart of this. Like I said, I really enjoyed the concepts. Now, everything else I didn't like. So, and I do think that that is probably because this is a character-driven story and I'm a plot-driven reader. So I do plan to continue with it. I would recommend it. I think it's a great book. And I can say that this book is not for me. However, I do like a lot of the elements and will probably continue on, like I said. So if that tells you anything or helps at all, I don't know. But yeah, the characters in here were really well written, like I said, and the concepts just kind of blew me away. I really enjoyed that. But we have some really interesting things going on. I'm going to read the back of this because I'm not really sure how to tell you this without spoiling things, and maybe the back will help me out here. Ambassador Mahit Desmer travels to the capital of the interstellar Texkalani Empire, eager to take up her new post. She arrives only to discover that her predecessor has died, and no one will admit that his death wasn't accidental, or that Mahit might be next. Now Mahit must discover who is behind the murder, rescue herself and save her small but fiercely independent mining station from Texcolonians' unceasing expansion, all while navigating an alien culture that is too seductive, engaging in intrigues of her own, and hiding a deadly technological secret, one that might spell the end of her station and her way of life, or rescue it from annihilation. There you go. There you go. That's the mystery that's at the heart of this story. And it was really, really well laid out and really, really intriguing. So if that intrigues you, I would say pick it up, because the writing is good, the characters are good, the mystery is really good. And aside from things not being specifically to my taste, I think it's amazing. I think it's quite amazing. Okay, and then for Force Lightning, I had to read a book that I was shocked I hadn't read yet. The Maleficent 7. This book has been recommended to me so many times. And so that's kind of where I can't believe I haven't read it yet comes from, is because there have been at least 10 people tell me, Trinity, you're gonna love this, you should read it, why haven't you read it yet? Put it on TBRs, and people are like, girl, this book is for you. They were right. They were right. And I've heard it pitched, as I said before, Suicide Squad and fantasy, and let me tell you guys, this is probably one of the best endings to a book I have ever read. Ever. And it delivered so well that at the end of it, I had a little bit of a book hangover, which is going to lead into another ability that I earned. But I had so much of a book hangover because it's hard to process once you have this book ending that's just, you can't do better than that. There's no way to do better than what you just read. I loved the characters in this. They are all kind of evil. So if that's not your thing, then maybe avoid this. But this is very dark. And it's about a woman who was this war queen, like, what do they call her? A demonologist. And she kind of takes over her nation with these dark creatures and takes down all of her enemies and then runs away. And no one really knows why. On the eve of battle, their final battle, she kind of secludes herself and disappears. And now everyone's mad at her because she did that and they lost. So well, they won. They won the battle, but then they lost the war, so to speak. And now her family is in danger, and she's going to do everything that she can to protect them. And she calls all of her war captains back to her side, even though they are all pretty ticked off at her and want to kill her. Most of them want to kill her. She has a plan. She has a plan to stop this new religion from spreading across their nation and a new nation from taking over and harming all she's built. So it's fantastic. Like I said, the characters in this are so intriguing. They're so awesome to follow. I don't want to say fun, because fun implies that you're going to have a good time and laugh and all of that stuff. And while you'll have a good time, because these characters are really just unique. They're very dark. This is a very dark story, and the characters themselves are not good people. So yeah, but the ending of this book is worth reading every single page. Like, so good, so good. So Force Healing was to not read a book for 60 plus hours, like not read anything for 60 plus hours. And I succeeded in that after reading the Maleficent 7, because book hangover. And then to earn my blaster, I read Under One Roof by Ali Hazelwood. This is a bind-up of her 3 short stories. You can see Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero. It was the only of her novellas that I hadn't read yet, and so the prompt was to move every time you picked up the book, and since it's a 3-hour audiobook, I actually just sat and read it, or listened to it. And I really love Ali Hazelwood. I love how fanficky her writing style is, and this one was very sweet. So we have a girl who moves in with a stranger, and during that process, they kind of start to fall for each other, but there's a miscommunication trope that's well utilized because they're roommates. Like, they don't want to step on any toes, they don't want to cross any lines, and both of them are kind of standoffish. So the miscommunication trope actually makes sense in this story. And she just kind of doesn't want to tell him how she feels, and he is obviously like brooding because that's what Allie Hazelwood writes. And she just doesn't know what to make of him. And for the first part of their relationship, he's kind of just a butt. And she doesn't know why, but it's more he has things on his plate that he's dealing with and doesn't want that interfering with the rest of his life. So it was really good. It was really good. Typical Allie Hazelwood style. We have a Grump Sunshine. We have size difference, you know, things like that. Anything you can think of that is typical Allie Hazelwood, that is definitely in here. And I loved it. I loved it. I've loved all three of these stories. I think Below Zero is probably the one I like the least, but it was still really cute. So next, we had another very highly anticipated ALC that was offered to me, and that would be The Witch King by Martha Wells. Now, twice this month, I had books that I had to restart because I was like, I missed something. My ADHD has kicked in. I missed something. I need to go back and listen to this because there's apparently a big piece that I didn't pay attention to, you know, and no. The Witch King was so confusing. So confusing. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. So it's to the point now that it's been a little bit since I've read it and I don't remember anything about it because I couldn't put the pieces together to tell you what it was I actually read. And I know we have like body hopping scenarios and we have these two characters who are trying to come back into their own power. That's all I remember, but I couldn't make it make sense. And so unfortunately I had to DNF The Witch King. And then we had another false start, which was supposed to push me to the next level in my abilities, but that would be The Grace of Kings. Now it is still on my TBR card. I'm looking right at it. But I was buddy reading this with someone on Andrew's Discord, Megan, and we were talking about it. And one of the things that we like fully agreed on is these chapters were reading like short stories. Like it felt like a bunch of short stories that were combined to make a book. And we didn't like that. Neither one of us liked that writing style. And so I was like, okay, am I wrong in feeling this way? And then she said it and I was like, okay, maybe not. Maybe it's not just me. And so while we were reading through it, there were things that were really confusing. There were things that weren't adding up. And I got a little bit further than she did, but we both got to a point where we were like, do I like this? I don't know. I can't tell you if I like this or not because there were certain things that were throwing us in the reading of it. Now, I put it on my not for now, and I will try it again. I think Megan just said nope, DNF. But it is one of those series that I really want to get invested in because there are so many elements that I should like. And I will talk to you guys a little bit about my not for now pile and what I plan to do with that. And because it is growing, I hadn't anticipated it growing, but it is growing. So all of that stuff we will talk about at a later date, but just know that The Grace of Kings did not work for me at this time. So because that didn't work out for me, I ended up going with a neutral prompt that is precognition, random number generator of 0 to 3. That's the number of books you have to read, counts as only one prompt. And I got 2. I will post the proof so you guys can see that. I was a little disappointed that after dropping a 600-page book, I was going to have to read 2 books to take its place, but found a workaround for this, a little bit of a workaround. I read Hellmouth by Giles Christian, and oh my gosh, it was gory and gross and amazing. And you know, I love Gothic. I've told you guys this before, but there's a reason I love Gothic, and I think Giles captured that in Hellmouth, and I want more. I have never in my life given a novella 5 stars until now. If you like dark stories, if you like stories about demons and hell and things like that, I think you will really like this. If you like really rich fantasy, I think you will like this. This, I think, could cross genres very well from horror to fantasy. And if you like either one, I think this story will work for you. But if those don't appeal to you, and if you're not a horror fan, I would stay clear of this story because there are a lot of horror elements. There are a lot of trigger warnings for this. So if there are certain things about horror that bug you, I would definitely look at the trigger warnings. but it was grotesque in the best way, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And if you guys don't know, I'm a huge fan of Giles Christian's writing anyway, so he's the one I can compare most to my favorite author. And he has a really good chance of making my favorite author, like coming up close to Anthony Ryan, once I actually complete some of his series, because I have a really hard time. Rewind just a bit. He writes Norse books, and I had a huge Norse burnout. So I've been wanting to get back to his books, but I've also had the issue of, are these actually going to work for me? Because, you know, I don't know. Because, yeah, the Norse burnout. Anyway, moving on. The second book I read for that prompt would be Violet Made of Thorns. Now, I have been wanting to get through my OwlCrate books. They haven't been high priority on my list because YA hasn't really been clicking for me, but I was like, why not? It was available immediately on Libby, and I was like, I can listen to it while I'm doing other things. YA, I don't have to pay such close attention to. Guys, this one was really good. It was really good. As far as YA goes, I don't feel like this one was too tropey. I do feel like we had the enemies to lovers play out really well in this. And if you are an enemies to lovers fan, I highly recommend Violet Made of Thorns. We have a character who's a little shady. Our main character is shady. She's a liar. And the prince of the kingdom is very aware that she is a liar, even though she is supposed to be the one who delivers prophecy and is their seer. He is aware that the king has convinced her she needs to lie. And so that's kind of the basis of this story, is the prince knowing that our main character is a liar and calling each other out on their BS throughout the course of this book. But I really enjoyed this. I would recommend it. I think it's a fun read if you are in the mood for that. If you like enemies to lovers, like I said, this is a good book for that. And I do think I will continue with this. Will I buy the special edition next time? I don't know. Probably not. But I am going to keep this one. I am going to add it to my YA shelf and hold on to it because I think it's great. Plus, look at that cover. How can you get rid of that cover? It's just too pretty. Okay, and a book I made fit into this readathon, No Land for Heroes. I finally finished it, guys. Oh, I have a new favorite character. Millie is fantastic. So I talk about my Mama Bear characters all the time. Let's see if I can get this in focus. Can you guys see this? Yeah, I'm a Mama Bear, and I have a necklace that says Mama Bear on it. So I talk all the time about Mama Bear characters, how much I love them. These women who will do anything for their kids. And Mama Bear characters, Maleficent 7 also, yeah. But Millie is so great. So this starts out with a train robbery. And during the train robbery, there's also a dragon attack. And things about this world start to unravel from there. We find out that Millie has a past, and her past is connected to who they rob. And she actually has like a huge backstory that we do get to find out. We do get little chunks of it along the way. We don't get this huge info dump. You guys know how much I hate that. But as the story starts to unravel, we find out more about Millie's past, why she has PTSD, why she surrounds herself with people she trusts and kind of rejects the things that she doesn't trust. And, you know, all of these things, like, it really makes Millie a very, very interesting character to follow, because we all know, we find out at one point what her past is, and you are prepped and ready for Millie to take on the mantle of her past. You're ready for her to just come out and be this just amazing, ballsy character, even though she's pretty ballsy to begin with. But you're prepped, you're ready. It's like gung-ho, let's go. And while I did give this one a little bit lower rating because I was ready for that to happen hard, it does, but not as hard as I wanted to, and it wasn't the emotional impact that I was hoping for. However, I have heard No Port in a Storm delivers it hard. And so I gave this one a 4.5. Just because that little bit that I'm waiting for, I already know from talking to other people, it's coming. It's coming. And so while I did have this as a 5-star prediction, I'm not disappointed at all that it came in at a 4.5. But it was so good. It was so good. Oh, and I love the love interest in this story because he's kind of a brat. And I don't know how else to say that without giving spoilers, but you know, he's rich and he lives a rich lifestyle, and he goes out to the boonies to find Millie and figure out what happened to his train and stuff like that, and what happened to his investment, and encounters Millie, and shenanigans ensue. And he gives her a lot of grief, but I really enjoyed their dynamic. And like I said, Millie is probably one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character of all time. She has a little bit of work cut out for her in topping Mia, but there is a good chance that No Port in a Storm will actually pull that off. So I ended my readathon, like I said, as a Dark Lord of the Sith with my lightsaber and my blaster. I did not get my spaceship that was supposed to be Ancillary Justice. Zabrak, my species, how I got that was No Land for Heroes. I did attempt Droids multiple times, which was a book with no people on the cover. However, those books were books that I DNF'd or NFN'd and didn't gain those. And First Order. So I started a book that had a prologue. I was supposed to have been reading Furyborn, and for some reason I got on this kick of just Asian authors and I started Foul Lady Fortune. Unfortunately, that one was the other book that was so confusing that I had to restart, and I restarted it twice. So I read it, the first 60-ish pages, 3 times. And I was like, okay, we're done. This is just confusing as heck, and I'm not gonna get into it. At this point, I don't care. So Foul Lady Fortune didn't work out for me. I did not get the Galactic Empire or the First Order. So let's talk about what I'm currently reading, because I am currently on volume 2 of Saga. I have the complete compendium of, or first compendium of Saga. So I'm working on volume 2. You can kind of see where that puts me in the compendium, but I love Saga and I'm so happy to be reading it again. This is being recorded a little early, so there's a good chance that I will finish it in May. But if I don't, this is easy to push through to June. I also started at Forgery of Roses. And this is another Owl Crate that I have left off to the wayside that I haven't read yet. It's a beautiful book, beautiful. I started this a little while ago and I'm about like 4 or 5 chapters in. Not really sure how I feel about it yet, because while it is written in a very gothic way, like it's very lush writing, it's very atmospheric, I don't know that I like the main character just yet. So we'll see how this goes. But yeah, I have added another of my Owl Crate books that I need to figure out if I like it or not to the list. Just haven't got very far in it. But that is my May the Force Read With You readathon wrap up. That was a mouthful. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was long. I read a lot of books. I needed to talk about a lot of books. So I didn't do stats and everything like that because I knew I was going to be giving the readathon stats to you guys. So if you're interested, I did come in at almost 5,000 pages read. Almost. So we are back on track. That'll change next month. All right, that's it for me today. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.